We welcome you tonight to our Tzemach Institute program. Tonight we have two very special guests with us from Israel, from the community of Kedumim. Did I pronounce it right? Close? Kedumim?
Yes, very close. Yes.
We have with us the Vice Mayor, Ms. Raphaella Segal, and Assistant to Mayor Daniela Weiss, Shoshana Shilo. Thank you all for being with us tonight.
Thank you. It's our honor.
We hear a great deal about the settlers, and these are settlers that are, in this particular case, happen to be grandmothers, and they're not quite as violent as it sometimes is portrayed in the media. Tell us something about the community of Kedumim.
Yes, the community of Kedumim is actually the first community that was established in Samaria, what we call Shomron, 31 years ago, in which few people with great faith and belief in our connection to the land, the biblical land, we decided that we have to live there, and we went through a great struggle of few attempts of settling the area around Shechem. In the end, after 3 years of struggling, we got the approval to stay in an army camp, in tents, in very primitive conditions, but we were very happy that we broke the prohibition of Jews staying in these areas. This is the beginning of Kedumim, which opened the way to actual Jewish life in Samaria. That today we know we can't ignore the Jewish presence in this area.
And the population of your community is?
Our community numbers 800 families, more than 5,000 people, and we are surrounded by many other communities which we have great connection by industry and communal life.
And the approximate distance from, most everyone will know where Tel Aviv or Jerusalem is?
Yes, Kedumim is quite in the center. It is between Netanya and Tel Aviv to the east, northern Jerusalem. It takes an hour for us to drive to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, to Kfar Saba. The width of Israel is 50 miles, and Kedumim is located on the hills 25 miles from the coast and 25 miles from the Jordan Valley, which is very in the center.
And if we put that in terms of Central Florida, we're talking about the width of a county. The distance, we're in Castleberry, the approximate distance from here to Disney World, I guess, yes. Which we don't even think about, but in that distance you can drive across the state of Israel. Sort of awesome. Last night when you were speaking with our group, you mentioned that this same area within a few miles was the first site when Abraham came to the land, recorded in Genesis 12, I believe, yes. When Abraham came to the land, that he first met God in the land. Is that correct?
That's very correct, and actually that is the real motivation that brought us to the idea that we have to settle the land. The Six-Day War, a miraculous war from our point of view, a dramatic war. In my personal life, it is the turning point and the greatest memories that I have. God gave us on a silver platter the areas that are actually the cradle of our nation. And when we saw this, we witnessed it, we understood that it requires from us action. We decided to settle next to Shechem, the place where Abraham came to meet his faith, and God appeared to him first and promised to him that the land will belong to Abraham and his descendants forever. And the first altar that Abraham built was in that place. So for us it was very significant also to build our first step of life back to restore Jewish life where Abraham was walking. Mm-hmm. In fact, the whole area, we find fingerprints of our forefathers. We are close to Shilo, we are close to Beit El. So we feel that we are in the biblical place. We see when we open our windows the mountains of Shechem, Eibal, and Gerizim, where the nation came first when they entered the land from the desert. And then Joshua spoke about the faith and our blessing, and that the fact that we became a nation.
You spoke about the Six-Day War. I'd like to go into that just a bit as like a watershed event in your own lives from a faith standpoint. Let's talk about that. Just most people now. Our audience is predominantly Christian. Many Christians, I should say, perhaps. Have an idea. Maybe they don't know many Jewish people. Maybe they don't know many Israelis, and they kind of their view of Jewish folks would be more of legalism or whatever. Now you're talking about dynamic responding to events, and I presume that you feel that in the Six-Day War you saw the hand of God moving on behalf of Israel.
No doubt. No one predicted such a victory and a change. Actually, in Israel, there was a great excitement because of the physical victory. First of all, physically, I, as a youngster, we were trained to go into shelters, and there was a great danger. My father was a physician digging graves, 30,000 graves around Tel Aviv. We were aware about the terrible danger of, God forbid, Israel annihilation. And to the extreme point, we witnessed not only a physical victory, but more than that, going back to those biblical areas that we were speaking about when we were still in Europe. We didn't speak about coming to Tel Aviv. We didn't speak about building Haifa. We actually came back to the land because 2,000 of years dreaming to go back to Zion, to those areas, Hebron, to those areas that represent our real connection to the land. And here, suddenly, we see in our eyes how God gave us here. This is a present. You are getting these places back. So for us it was a sign that it's not enough. All of the Israelis came to visit the forefathers' graves, went to visit Rachel tomb, but they went back to their homes, comfortable homes in Tel Aviv. And we felt that God requires us for action, to do something with this present. And we decided that we have to do something. It is to live there, exactly like the first Chalutzim came to Israel and built Israel.
Right.
This is what we have to do.
So in a Christian sense, you stepped out in faith to believe God, and now you, some decades later, about 3 decades later, we have a community. Did you say 5,000 population or something like that?
In Kedumim 5,000, but we must emphasize that our action of faith, and as we say, we did it against all odds. It wasn't rational. We had terrible physical conditions, no water, no electricity. Everyone in Israel was sure it is a passing episode. We were professionals. We had to keep jobs in Tel Aviv. But it's not only that Kedumim is 5,000 people. We actually created a revolution in which Yudah and Shomron is populated by 150 communities, more than 250,000 Jews that really you can't ignore, and we have a Jewish presence in this area. We see this map here that you see all the red dots represent those communities. And when you open a newspaper in the United States, you see the former green line without no community, only Jenin, Jerusalem, Tulkarem, and Hebron. But the truth is that there's a Jewish presence there.
Raphaella and Shoshana represent the type of faith that we have encountered and become acquainted with as we've traveled through the land of Israel. And certainly they are exceptional people, but in the sense of the faith that they exhibit, not exceptional in that sense because it's very commonplace. And so from a Christian standpoint, with people that are believing the Bible and are bold to step out in faith, why do you think that the settlers, why do you think that you're so uniformly portrayed in the media, whatever, or by the government as such zealots that's opposed to peace? I remember, this was several years ago, the then Secretary of State, I think it was Secretary of State James Baker, I'm not sure the specific office, but he made this famous statement before a congressional panel that the settlers were the single most, the greatest impediment to peace in the world. He's saying that Shoshana and Raphaella are the greatest impediments to peace in the whole world. How you spoke about not being rational. How could someone say that? Or why would someone say that?
First of all, people that believe in true peace should ask themselves why, if there is peace, we can't stay in our places in any condition of agreement, and if it's peace, we are there. Why peace means destroying lives of people that also want peace? So that's the first question. I would tell and say, till Oslo was signed, there was a support of the population towards people in Yehuda and Shomron. I used to go to places and buy things, and when they heard that I'm from the community, they gave me a reduction. It was really, the people supported because they felt that we are continuing the Zionist approach. What happened was that the minute the political establishment decided on a different direction of concessions and recognizing the PLO and giving them the land, they had to change the atmosphere towards us because they knew that the Palestinians won't give up and receive any agreement leaving us there. So they had to portray us as aggressive, unpleasant people, otherwise you can't accept an agreement. And to take us out and get the support of Israeli population, they can achieve only if they won't like us.
Yes. You mentioned you were honored somewhat, whatever, among the Israeli population. You spoke previously that prior to the so-called peace process, you guys enjoyed a relative peace with the Arab neighbors also, but not so after Oslo and the peace process. Let's talk about that a minute, because that struck me, the idea that the so-called peace process has brought the exact opposite. Than presumably the intended purpose.
We call it a peace process, but I couldn't find a more incorrect term to what is going on than to say peace. And I don't think any human being that is reading what's going on in our area can even call it peace. We actually had, before Oslo was signed, an informal peace, which we call. The Arabs accepted us in the area. They didn't dream about any change. They even remembered what they had under Jordanian regime, in which they were really, they had a very terrible life. They were killed and they had no rights. And when we came, they had water, they had commercial life, good connection. We used to go to Shechem. My children even remind me, they remember until 15 years ago, I used to drive by myself with a car and buy shoes in Shechem. People were working in Kedumim. I have an eye clinic in the community, and Arabs from the area came to get checked up in my clinic. We used to buy in the area. Our children used to go on foot to the neighborhoods, the villages, play soccer. I think Shoshana can add what her husband has.
My husband had an office in Shechem, and actually the simple people, they love us and they had a very good relation with us. The problem is the leadership. And when when Arafat came, we remember that our neighbors came to us and begged us, don't leave us alone. We need you.
They didn't understand us.
They said, you are crazy people. He's going to kill us. He's going to abuse us. Actually, I think we are a mirror to our people in Israel. We continue our way. We don't bend. We believe in our belief. And it's not nice to look in the mirror and see that you are not doing what you should do. So it's a big complex, you know.
I have observed this process for decades now. We saw Yasser Arafat's organization. It's a Palestinian Authority now. It was the PLO then. In Jordan, the revolution, they were eventually driven out. In Lebanon, the same thing. And now in Israel, they're doing the same thing.
We brought them in.
Pardon?
We invited him in.
That's true. Obviously, there was a good deal of international pressure along with that too. If people with the news and media resources that we have are very limited, could go there and understand what was going on, surely the diplomats across the world understood what was going on. So the illusion of creating some sort of peace thing is almost sickening. It must be much more so to you all. A few years ago, then Prime Minister Barak withdrew from Lebanon, and then more recently, Prime Minister Sharon withdrew from Gaza. Did that result in better security for Israel?
Much worse.
Much worse.
Deteriorated the situation. It wasn't only a withdrawal, it was a unilateral runaway, actually, from a situation of under terror and every day of killing and shooting. We just decided we are leaving the area. We witnessed in Lebanon the past war in which for 6 years they were building a whole society and Hezbollah fighters with a lot of ammunition preparing for a big war against Israel. And in Gaza Strip, what we see today, launching rockets to a much further distance with a very terrible way of killing, more ammunition, more weapons, explosives, pulling in more and more disaster weapons. And Hezbollah cells inside Gaza, Hamas came up, and Al-Qaeda cells we know are in Gaza. Iranians are training those cells, and this is a great threat to Israel. Every day we have rockets in the cities that never had the experience of such rockets.
It is amazing to me the inconsistency in our own administration, because on the one hand, the administration is struggling against terror, and we see that across the world, and at the same time is openly attempting to establish a Palestinian state when everyone, I think, recognizes, and again, you all more than anyone else, because obviously it has a immediate and a direct effect on you. If a Palestinian state were to come into existence, it's going to be a Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda type administration, is it not?
Of course it is, and even today, most of the high-rank professionals in the army, they express their views, and they say that after the Lebanon war and what's going on in Gaza, they fully understand that nothing should be done and given in Judea and Samaria, because the rockets that they still don't have will come to this area and they will shoot onto the Ben Gurion airport. Any city in Israel will be under danger. They know it, but still we hear all kinds of ideas. We are far from a Palestinian state because of what we went through. A Palestinian state is a great danger to Israel, no doubt.
We have a solution. We think that in Jordan, most of the people in Jordan are Palestinians, original, and they can go and build a Palestinian state in Jordan, and it will be a peace.
Sometimes we refer to Jordan as the Arab-occupied East Bank.
Yes, that's
according to the Bible, part of Jordan will be Israel state.
It was,
but since 48, we know that now it's not part of Israel. So we really agree to build a Palestinian state in Jordan, and those Palestinians who want to live in quiet, in peace in Israel, they can stay in their homes, they can stay in their villages, in the cities. They don't have to leave.
Without political rights.
Right.
Actually, we spoke about the informal peace. They admit, those that live around us, the average Arab that is not connected to terror, they say we had a better life when we were under your control. We need quiet, we need our land and commercial life. This is what we need. And they are longing to go back to what they had in the past.
And all the communities are not built on Arabic villages. We never think about transfer Arabic people from their villages, from their town. We only say that let us stay in our biblical land with them.
Sure. Tell me, now Christians have their own sort of system of thought concerning what we see God's doing in the future from a process of redemption. We talk about, we talk about the process of redemption, which you believe that you're an integral part of. What kind of things do you see in the future in the biblical process of redemption?
We feel that our background, our people that living in Judah and Shomron and Gaza, that are now out of Gaza, but those people that actually have our belief in the land. And it's not only the 250,000 Jews there. We have a lot of people that believe in this way inside Israel that also help us. We believe that we have to continue our faith and build these places. We are in a vacuum time in which politicians are trying to find a solution, but they come to a dead end because of one basic problem. The minute you don't believe in your rights, you can't win a war, and you don't try to chase out those terrorists because you look upon them as partners. Now what we have our way. We believe on our rights. We believe that maybe we will go through more tests. Yes, because the minute the politicians and the media speak about giving a Palestinian state, as you mentioned, and finding a solution of turning over these areas, if they don't acknowledge and understand it's theirs, we'll have more tests until they will understand and the eyes will be open. In the meantime, our duty is to continue and bring more Jews, build these areas, and in the future, it will happen. We will win in the long run. In the meantime, we have a second generation that we have, which is an unbelievable second generation that not in common in Israel, in every kibbutz and other places in which we see the second generation rebel their people, their parents. Our second generation follow our wake. They continue the same lifestyle. They build in the communities, their families. They go to more difficult places that require struggle, like outposts and other new places. They are involved in the struggle. And it's a growing big generation. We have big families. And they are involved in the army, so they have influence. We believe in our influence slowly, to change the society in Israel to understand that we can't give up our land. It's ours. That's the main thing. It belongs to us, and we have to say it.
Now, when you say that the land belongs to you, you are appealing to the biblical mandate. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you're a people of faith. You believe the scriptures, and the scriptures said to Abraham, we talked about that earlier, and to Isaac and Jacob after him, to your descendants I will give this land. So you're simply just embracing the biblical pattern of belief and faith.
I tell you what, without faith, it is so illogical to live in the land of Israel. We are surrounded by 500 million Muslims that are speaking, also Iranian, Ahmadinejad, and everyone knows that we are a small little dot on the map that rationally, if we test it rationally, we have no chance. But because we believe in our past, because we believe in the future, we know that we will manage to go through. And we are continuing because of this faith. And the word Kedumim in Hebrew, it's very interesting that in the end, the name of the community so much has meaning of what we are. Kedumim in Israel has two meanings. Kedumim is first, Kedumim is ancient, and you have the word Kadima, which is future, forward. So we have in that word of Kedumim, past, first, and the future, which is us.
And you see that as a realization every day.
Every day we see miracles.
In the development of the community and the training of your children. Now tell us how many children you have and how many grandchildren again. These folks are not going to believe that, but...
Thank God I'm blessed by 9 children. 6 are married. I have 15 grandchildren as a beginning. Most of them live in the communities. And Shoshana.
Yes.
I have 4, thank God. 2 married. 6 grandchildren, the 7 on the way, and we see God every minute.
Rabbi Wollman always, when he's here, I can sense the sympathy that he feels for my wife and I. We have 2 sons, but we have no grandchildren, so we're I want to thank Raphaella and Shoshana today for being with us and taking the time to come and share their life of faith. And I want to challenge Christians that are watching this program to go to Israel and discover in the heartland of Israel this really bold expression of biblical faith. That's our program for tonight. Shalom.